Hi everyone, Vacha here from Recording Studio 9, and thanks for joining me again for another viewer comments and replies live stream where I go through the comments left on my videos for the past week or so, or maybe a little bit longer, depends how much interesting comments I read, and then reply to those comments if I haven't already, or explain them even a little bit further. So I hope you enjoy this trip with me and all my viewers and my subscribers asking questions and leaving comments. So without any further delay, let's get started. And we'll start with the last one that just came in just 3 hours before I started this live stream. And Philip Bet says, save your money on the ART TPS2 tube microphone preamp review, which I had done that video probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And he says the tube circuit is a fake. There is no plate voltage, no plate transformer, no plate rectifier or filter caps. There is power to the filament to make it glow, but that's it. I'm an electronics engineer and repair this stuff. I have one on my bench and got curious as I couldn't see any high voltage components. Well, I only had that unit for about 3 or 4 months before I sold it off. I never opened it, so I'm just going to take your word for it. And yes, sometimes the tube mic pre's don't do anything with the tube other than a little bit of saturation. But to what I had used that microphone preamplifier, which is a dual microphone preamplifier, it used some distortion, tube distortion and saturation in there. It was nice, but I wasn't too happy with it. Whether it was my unit or that's how they are, it had a crackling noise in there, which would come in and go every now and then. And whether the tubes were busted, I don't know. But anyway, Philip, thanks for that input. Maybe someone can confirm that as well. Yeah, going down on the list, there's a lot to cover. So Legacy says on my Magic Soundforge 14, I just got Vegas Platinum 17 and it came with this. Yes, Magic does provide additional side software with the main software when you actually purchase them, which is really nice of them. And Lens says, dude, you're totally John Turturro's long lost brother, right? Yeah, somehow people, that's not the first time I get that comment. Somehow people think I look like him. Maybe I do at certain point, certain position on the camera. So yes, I said yes, but don't tell anyone. Shh. Okay, let's go down. So and see what we can say. Lots of thank you comments, and which is nice to read through. And Diary Music comments on my Pro Tools first version 2020.9, which is the free version of Pro Tools, and I'm asking the possibility of whether there are any third-party AAX supports, and I find out there are a couple of them, and he's asking, where is Pitch Shift and Auto-Tune Pro? Well, not in Pro Tools first. You got to buy Pro Tools or Pro Tools Ultimate to actually get those plugins, and you have to buy those as well. And Rachel says, mine still doesn't work. I give up. Oh, no, not that quickly. And that's on my video on recording vocals with a USB mic for Magic Music Maker 2019. Yeah, I mean, I go in detail with all of those videos because I get that question so many times. if my videos can't help you, that you probably have to see someone that knows and can help you, resolve the problem. It could be your USB microphone, it could be the setup. Um, yeah, maybe read the manual and see if you can find someone who can help you out. There's not much more I can help you with that one. On my video on mid-side audio processing with Studio One version 4.5 Artist Edition, and NoxG says, if you listen carefully before and after, you can hear the hi-hat going to the center every time the kick hits. Also, the stereo image becoming narrow. Well, I actually haven't noticed that. Whether that's something to do with YouTube or something else, other compression that's happening with the video. But when you are processing mid-side and with compressors or EQs, you are only affecting those middle frequencies and which are pretty much center frequencies and the side frequencies. Obviously, not sure why I would go to the center. I'll have to check that out. And the perps comments on my installing the free Presonus VU meter in Studio One. It's coming from Ableton and was quite lost on why my plugins weren't showing up. Yeah, well, your video was the first in my search, and surely it was straightforward and to the point. Bless you. Well, thank you. I'm glad that actually helped out. And Dose of Gaming commented on my Soundcraft Notepad 5 driver ASIO buffer settings. He says, when I launch the software, it will not show up my Note 5 that's plugged into my PC. I got it working one time, but it will not work anymore. Could you please help me with any information? I asked several questions to help him out, but all I got is I have the latest software, but my PC will not detect the USB Soundcraft Notepad 5. I asked again, which recording software are you using? So I can help you whether you're not selecting the right driver or you can't find it or something. So maybe you could contact Soundcraft for further support. And a few more questions. I'm just going to skip to see if there's anything more interesting one there other than thank you notes. Again, thank you so much for all the comments that thank about my videos being helpful. It's good to know. And on my how to create reverb echo effect with Studio One Prime. That's the type of the effect where the reverb is not on the main initial signal, but the reverb is on the echo. So you say, hello, hello, oh, 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 that sort of an effect. So you get nice, clear sound, and then the echo that's repeated is a reverb. It says, so that's where I found that kind of inserts. I never find stuff like ping pong beat delay under effects. I think he's talking about how there are presets and also effects. The presets are part of the effects chain. So that's good to know. And let's scroll further down. If there's anything interesting. And most of them is saying that it's, thank you notes. And also, yeah, about the Pro Tools First. Even though Pro Tools First won't accept any third-party AAX plugins, you can only use the ones that you purchase from the marketplace. But there is a note somewhere saying that some AAX plugins will work with Pro Tools First, the free version. And Marcelo says Convology XT is working fine. And the funny thing is, yes, it does work. The funny thing is, you can't really find Convology XT in Avid unless you actually click a certain link, which I have it in the description. So if you go to Avid's website and search for that plugin, you can't find it. It won't show it to you. So, but I have the link which will take you directly to that plugin, and you can download it and you can use that Reverb plugin in Pro Tools first. So let's go for more. And Sajak says, this is great. You point to a link, but I can't see the link. Okay, I might have to fix that one. Maybe you can put it in the description. May I ask a question? Can you add the same effects, one, channel compression, or is it better to create each effects you want to add a new effects channel? Well, I guess I'm directing Sajak to another video of mine to explain, and he says, thank you. Yeah, you can have in Studio One Prime as many effects channels as you want, and as many tracks that you like as well. And also you can have as many inserts either on the tracks or the effects channels. So there's no limit on there other than your PC capability. A lot of people don't know that. So you can actually put, as I have some videos explaining that, where you can put a channel strip and another channel strip, or another effect, another channel strip, as many as you like, to shape your sound the way you want it. So that's sort of one way of getting around having multiple channel EQs. So you can have more than the 3 bands available by just simply using multiple of them, or using, you know, the compression twice. Do it lightly and then do another light one and another light one, so you get gradual compression and all those things. And here's an interesting comment by Brian McCullough that I want to address about my video on how to combine 2 audio interfaces using the ASIO for All driver and ADAT clock link. In that video, I'm basically explaining how, if you have 2 similar or same or completely different manufacturer audio interfaces, how you can combine them together to be able to use all of their inputs and all of their outputs. Now, this is quite easy on a Mac platform, because you can aggregate those 2 and it will do the same job as ASIO for All without any additional software, because of Core Audio available in Mac. And this is a very similar concept that you can use on Windows platform. And I do go in detail explaining the reasons why you need to do that. Because if you have 2 different devices and they have clock in them, and if you want to send both information together, if those clocks are not synchronized together, then the information will go out of sync when it's sent to the PC. So using ADAT, which has a clock signal, you can synchronize the 2 together as parent and child, because at the moment I can't say master and slave. For decades, that's what the term was, a master clock and a slave clock. But parent and child to talk, so that when the computer receives the digital information from 2 different devices, it can synchronize them by using the same clock. So they receive the same clock. So that's the background of that. And Brian says, if you have 2 audio interfaces with ADAT in and out and 8 analog inputs and outputs on each, I can just take the ADAT out from number 2, bring it to the ADAT in to number 1, run the ADAT out from number 1 to the ADAT in of number 2, and then just use the interface number 1 with whatever driver it comes with, no need to use ASIO for all, and have access to all 16 analog inputs and outputs on both interfaces through interface number 1 to the computer. I can then use the interface software to route all channels however I like and see them all in my DAW, where I can just set the clock to internal for both interfaces to slave through the ADAT connections. Now, there's one big problem with that. Unless you have a high-end audio interface like Motu, RME, or PreSonus interfaces, and maybe Antelope or UAD, Apollo, all of those ones, which cost quite a few thousands of dollars each, you cannot direct your analog outputs to ADAT and make them work as analog to digital converters, like the budget Behringer's ADA 8000 or 8200, or the PreSonus Digimax 88, and so on, or the Focusrite Octopre. Because the budget ones, like the example I have in that video, the Behringer Firepower FCA 1616, as well as the old AudioBox 1818 VSL from PreSonus, they don't direct their analog inputs to ADAT, so it doesn't work. Analogs only go to USB, ADAT only goes to USB. And what comes from USB goes to analog output, and what comes from USB goes to ADAT output. So what you are suggesting, Brian, it will work on high-end interfaces that have a DSP, digital signal processing, built in the interface to allow you to direct all of the analog and ADAT inputs, outputs to wherever you want to go, but the budget ones don't. And my video is directed to the budget audio interfaces. So if you have one that has 8 inputs and you have another one that has 4 input or 2 input, you can combine it using the ASIO for all to get that extra, rather than having that audio interface lying around doing nothing. Anyway, continuing on, Brian says, if your method was correct, and I've never seen anyone use ASIO for all to successfully combine two input or output interfaces, then I should be able to run 2 additional AD converters, like the Behringer's ADA 8000, 8200, which I just mentioned, to feed each of the audio interfaces and combine the 2 interfaces to ASIO for all to get 32 inputs and outputs, with the ADAT handling the clock, or just use a dedicated external work clock to sync all 4 devices and the DAW PC. Now, I have actually done experiment, and there is a video of mine somewhere where I indicate that I have connected those 2 interfaces in question, the AudioBox 1818 VSL and the FCA 1616, when I had them back in those days, and run them for hours and hours, recording all 16 inputs, and then being able to send all 16 outputs using ASIO for all with not one single drop of samples. And I have proven that. Now, having said that, ASIO for all does have limitation, and that's because you are putting all of your processing power to convert on and synchronize on your PC rather than the hardware. Because when you connect an ADAT extension module like the Behringer's ADA 8200 into your interface, all of that happens hardware-wise, not software. But now, as you're combining the 2 using ASIO for all of the processing power and requirement is on your PC. Hence, limitation comes in. And with all of my testing, I do have the Behringer's UFX 1604, which is a 16-channel input USB interface. And I have combined that with my PreSonus 1824, which has another 8. So you have about 24 inputs coming through without any synchronization as well, because my UFX 1604 mixer does not have any ADAT or any other way to synchronize it. It does work for quite some time, probably about 45 minutes or 60 minutes thereabouts, until the whole thing comes to an halt, because it eventually, the clocks will drift, and ASIO for all cannot handle that. And any more than that, I added an ADAT unit, my Focusrite Octo Pre, to my 1824 to have even more, as what you're suggesting there, and ADAT won't be able to handle it. It's just too many input, it just grinds to a halt. Too many inputs for it to get it processed. But if you have 8 input devices and you combine them the way I explain in my videos, either through ADAT clock link or through SPDIF clock link, they will work for hours. So you can actually record with 16 inputs, 2 different interfaces without any sample drop. Also, of course, this depends on the power of your PC, because that's where you're putting the power to from the interfaces. I hope this explains it and the answer to you, because a lot of people get confused, and I get these questions all the time. And I'm glad that actually Brian brought it up in more detail, and he took the time to comment. Unfortunately, I think that ask that you've done here to make use of ADAT input into your main interface to use extra ADAT in channels, which is well documented feature of audio interface anyway. Yeah, in my examples, as I mentioned, I'm not using ADAT to transfer audio data. I'm just using the clock to synchronize the parent-child devices together. And then each device send their audio data through their own respective USB onto your PC. ASIO combines them together. There is no synchronization drift. So ASIO works without any problems. So on a Mac platform, mind you, when you aggregate 2 devices, Mac has a drift control that will do that. So that's the same thing that ASIO for all cannot do as well as on Mac platform with Core Audio. But you're still going to get that drift unless you synchronize the 2 devices together. Of course, when you are using an external extension ADAT unit, like the ADA 8200 or my Focusrite Octo Pre, they're already synchronized together. There's nothing to worry about. And Brian continues saying you don't even need to waste a USB port on your DAW computer, because it doesn't need to pull audio from the interface. It can do it with just the ADAT connection going into the primary interface connected to the DAW. Yeah, so yes, as you can, as I explained, that is if you are using ADAT extensions, not 2 different interfaces, especially budget ones who don't send their analog to ADAT. Lastly, there's a maximum number of channels you can bring to a PC using a USB 2 port. That is correct, and that's what I just explained earlier as well, using my 16-channel mixer audio interface and additional 8. My RME, Digiface USB interface takes 4 ADAT ins and 4 ADATs out. Now you're talking. See, the price of RME is probably about at least 6 times the price of any budget audio interface. Because that's your experience there, without having the experience of having budget audio interfaces, you probably weren't aware of those limitations. You can connect the ADA 8000 to your ADAT and have, 32 inputs, 34 outputs, no problem, because it's all ADAT processing. I'd love it if you were correct, though. Um, Try me again. And you will find out that if you ever watch this video, you'll find out that what I'm talking about is correct. And I've used that method many times. Um, I've got 4 audio interfaces with ADAT in and out and 2 Behringer AD8200s. If you were right, I could buy 2 more AD8200s and then have 64 channels and input and output and sell my Digiface USB. Unfortunately, ASIO can't handle it. Yes, ASIO for all, as I just mentioned, cannot handle any more than, I think, 26 inputs and outputs. It'll just be too much processing power on your PC. And yeah, so for the limitations that the budget audio interfaces have, I think my workaround is a great way to use any other interfaces lying around instead of spending thousands of dollars buying big RME interfaces. Which I wish I could afford it as well, but I don't even have RME, and what I have here works really well for me. What makes those damned Apple computers better for audio recording? They can combine interfaces right in the OS, where Microsoft won't get off their asses to fix their crappy audio system. Well, as I mentioned, yes, that is true somewhat, but when you look at your core audio settings on your Mac platform, you will find that there is a checkbox that allows you to correct for drift, clock drift. You can select that and it will look after it for sure. And you are correct there. So, I mean, ASIO for all being what it is, it does a good job for a free driver software and hasn't been maintained lately as well as it should have been, but it does the job for people who just are on a very tight budget. Well, just going back, thanks Brian McKellar for your question and your comment, and I hope my explanation, which I've also written down, most of what I've just told you here as well. I hope you can read it. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you come back and then and I hope I help you out that better understand all the different manufacturers and how they work, how audio interfaces work. Well, I think it's time for me to see if anybody is online watching this and find out what is happening. Okay, you might be able to see, but hopefully there's not information there that people don't have to worry. Yep, it's all right. I have Topa says hello. Nepali Christian Online TV says hello. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Error, please use keyframe frequency. Whatever. It's all good. Prime Minister raid. Let me see. So Win says, hi sir, I'd like to ask one thing. How quiet the home studio room should be in DB, and how important external mic preamp is in recording? Okay, well, it all depends where you are. If you have a dB meter, you can measure it, and without any computers or anything running, you should get anywhere between 30 and 40 dB. This is what I get in my home studio, but my studio is all soundproof. There's about 60 dB difference from inside to outside. I do have videos showing when I actually built the place and tested it, about how loud music is inside and how quiet it is outside. At the same time, how loud is outside, close the room, and on my meter you can actually read. I think it was about 30 dB, 35 dB on my SPL meter that I have. So that's what home, purpose-built home studio would be. But if you're in your bedroom, you probably add another 10 dB on top of that, and depends who else is running around in your room. That will make a noise. How far away from um, the road you are, and so on, neighbors and everything else. Sometimes there's not much you can do. And putting acoustic treatment won't help soundproofing. To get soundproofing, it's a completely different concept. To get no sound coming in or out. Acoustic treatments that you see around, even behind me there, they're for the sound reflection in the room. It doesn't mean that the sound won't come in or won't go out. And what was the other question? How important external mic preamp is in recording? Absolutely not important. If you have a good audio interface, and these days, even the cheapest audio interfaces, under $100 interfaces, the mic pre's are very, very clean. Instead of buying a mic preamplifier, spend that money buying a good microphone so that it captures better sound. Then, because a mic preamp is not going to make the sound of the crappy microphone any better. It actually make it worse. So if you have a crappy microphone and you plug into your expensive mic pre, it will make it even crappier because it enhances everything. So invest in a good microphone rather than mic pre. And when you get to a stage where you have a good microphone and multiple microphones, you have at least 2 or 3 different type of good microphones. And I'm talking about, when I say good microphone, at least $300-400 microphone each. Then you may start thinking of getting mic pre's to shape your sound as it's going through, to give a little bit of tone and character. Some mic pre's also have compressors in them, so you can apply a light compression going in. Some actually have maybe 3-band EQ, like as well as low cut, so you can add those things and prepare before it goes into your audio interface. But if you don't have a good microphone, I would highly recommend to actually invest in a microphone than a mic pre. I hope that answers. If there's anybody else, a big hug from Brazil, Luciano Silva. Hello, Luciano. Thank you. All the hugs. Thank you so much. I'm just going to go a little bit more comments to see if there's anything else that I could answer. As I said, most of the comments are saying, like Troy says, excellent tutorial, which also applies to many other Behringer USB mixers. Thank you. Again, Leo comments on my Presonus Studio One version 5 Prime edition's limitations. Explains, says, thanks man, I was researching a lot about this and finally found it, and thank you so much. And as you can see, I do reply and like the comments. I read every comment as much as I can and reply to them as well. Yeah, so here we go. Someone asking about where do I get the microphone shock mount. I've directed them. Yeah, so let me see if there are any other questions. And another question from, interesting one from Hamet RVN about my video where I say all about audio mixer or audio interface inserts. Like the example, the Behringer, I think FCA 1616. And he asks, does using insert increase latency of the signal in live situations? No. As I answer to them, no. Because inserts are break through the analog audio chain. So your microphone input will come in, you break the connection with the insert that goes out to maybe a compressor or an EQ, or if you are plugging a guitar, you can go to a guitar effects pedal, and then will come back and continue its journey before, and this happens before the analog to digital conversion, and it goes to your PC afterwards. And one thing you need to make sure that whatever effect you put in as a hardware insert will be printed in your DAW, will be recorded that way. Some people actually got confused and saying that, is it the same insert as the insert that I plug in my Studio One or in my Reaper or in my Pro Tools? No, it's not the same. This is a hardware insert. And the second question says, can I use something like a guitar effect pedal, noise reducer, compression limiter, etc. for the external effects with the insert? Will it work? And the answer to that is yes, of course. That's the whole purpose of those analog inserts. And if you want to learn about those inserts, not many interfaces do come with it, but Behringer ones, like the FCA 1616, and few others that come with inserts. Watch my video all about audio mixer or interface inserts, and you can learn about them. They are very, very handy. I have them. My Behringer UFX 1604 comes with 8 inserts, and they are patched through. So every time I need my mic pre or my compressor on the vocal, or the compressor, certain compressor on my guitars, on the way in, before it reaches the computer, I can patch that through and have that effect come through as well. I think I've gone back enough now, 6 days. Let me see what else we can have. And I think that's about it. I'm just going through a little bit more. Another question, I think it is an important one, about Pro Tools First. If you are a Pro Tools First user, make sure you get the latest one, 2020.9.0, because at least it has a save button. It will save things locally. I still would like to see it better, where you can actually save the project as a session, but I guess they're not allowing that. All the files of your project are saved locally on your hard drive, but they are in a convoluted place, and you can't move them, you can't rename them, you can't change them. It's really pain. But at least there's a save button. At least you know it's saving locally. It says, hello Vache, can we use this updated version offline? Unfortunately, to my experience, no, you can't. Every time you run Pro Tools First, it needs to connect to the internet, it needs to connect to the servers and log in before you can actually use it. So that's something else that they probably should fix it. But I guess they want to keep track of how many people are using Pro Tools First, whether they would continue supporting it or not. I really don't know. Yes, I think that's about it. I've gone 1 week. And if you have any comments you'd like to make for me to follow it up, comment below in this video's section. So any topic about audio, anything else that you've seen on any of my videos, because I will follow up from this video as well and do another live stream and following up and I guess answering those questions as well. But of course, you're most welcome to comment on my videos as well. Let me see. Let me get my OBS. Okay, I think that's about it for today. I hope I answered lots of questions, and I hope they were helpful. And thanks again for being here and coming in and being part of this live stream. Till next time, as always, thanks for watching and have a great time making music. Cheerio, everybody. Bye-bye.